All right, everyone. So just to start with our three intentions to begin with, the first is that we're all bringing our full presence. The second is respect for everyone. And the third is to bring our full determination to the conversation. So we'll go ahead and start with the invocation, and everyone, if you want to try to follow along, there in the chat box. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmilatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangu Langete Girim Yat Kripa Tammaham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sunda Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So if everyone can see that the first, I brief in the translation, but the first translation to the first mantra is, I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual teacher has opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge, and I offer my sincere respects unto him. The second is that we offer our respect to our teacher who gives us the words to speak and makes what is impossible possible. And the third is offering of respects to all those that have joined today. So thank you so much. And this, just moving into this chapter is really, really packed with really great stuff. And so I just wanted to first throw out and just open up, mainly the discussion today will be talking about these 6 design principles. And they're referred to as unintelligent design principles because they basically I understand them as they serve as roadblocks in our desire in our search for happiness and really the expression of the soul. And so just going on to the first principle, losing ourselves in the endless search for worldly worth. I'll just put it out there. Did anyone have any thoughts on this specific section or anything to say or anything that stuck out to them?
I think what comes to mind just as I'm thinking about it is, and something I've been working on is actually just being in the being and being okay as just being as opposed to doing, like not having to do something to have worth, and just that you're being who you are and who you're meant to be. Brings what you need to bring to the world as opposed to the worldly positions, or like you still can have positions and all those components, but it's not who you are. So just that idea of bringing ourself, who we are to the world without the titles, kind of. Yeah.
No, that's great point. Anyone want to add to that? Yeah, please, Avni.
So mine, I mean, my priority, my deepest priority at the moment is my children, are my children. So I love the fact that you can reflect, and where it says that instead of building up these children's egos to say, have them think about comparing themselves to others, is actually looking at the fact that, can you do things? Do you have the ability? So concentrating on themselves, I think that's so important to teach your children from the beginning. And I have like a little bit of an unbalance sometimes, because like my daughter, she plays golf. And so wherever we're always looking at the league table, it's a bit hard not to. So it's, very difficult to say, well, yes, wow, you're number one, but actually to keep it very on a humble level to say, wow, you can do it, rather than you've beat so many. So I have to find that balance of how to teach her. But I think that it's in my chosen words, and if I live it, I can teach it. So I think if I believe in how I'm saying it in the right way, it will come across in the right way. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Avni. You know, what you're saying, that point that you're making, that it's so much more powerful, and I think it's really needed for today's younger generation, is to promote self-discipline over comparison, right? Because self-discipline is empowering versus like comparison can be so disempowering, right? And so I think that point that they make there, fostering self-discipline, is such a big, important thing. But society, especially with the rise of social media, really is just putting out like just this mindset of comparison, and it's pushing it so much, right? That it makes, this point here that he makes before that, far better than self-esteem is unconditional self-acceptance and unconditional other acceptance, right? So I just wanted to throw out there as a discussion question, I know even I was thinking about this, why is this so difficult, right? Why, even for ourselves, sometimes self-acceptance is difficult. And then, let alone being acceptance in others. And I just wanted to maybe ask and see what comes to mind when they read this line, and maybe why it's so difficult to live in this space. We're in the pretty much in the third paragraph at the bottom, where he describes William James in 1890 about this concept of self-esteem, and then at the end of that paragraph. Anyone, any points to share on this?
I'll say something. It kind of reminds me of how we were brought up, the whole self-esteem and self-worth, in terms of gotta come home with the 90% and gotta bring good marks so you get into a good school. And that was like the way we were kind of raised. So it's hard to detach from that identity of like feeling like we were worthy unless we got those marks, right? Or if we didn't do that. So it kind of stuck with us, or at least me, of like, you got to be successful, good school, good, make money. And that kind of always stick, even though it's not our driver of, making money. I do feel sometimes it comes, like this chapter did resonate with me, because it feels like it started at a very young age for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add to Rima experience, both of us obviously I'm sure it's well known, but in Indian families, I mean, and other families too, but definitely in Indian families, that there's kind of a short list of professions that are considered, respectable. And I guess I was considered okay at least by my dad's point of view, because I became a doctor. But my sister, she had to go through a difficult struggle, because she didn't go into one of the 4 esteemed positions. She went into business, and she went into consulting, and I could always see that it's a hurdle it's a big hurdle to jump through when you don't have, and sometimes when you don't feel that kind of given that appreciation from your parents, for what your life choice has been. And so I think so many times, it has such a strong impact on us. And then, I think I can speak for myself too, when you get kind of pushed in the corner and you have to feel like you have to kind of prove your self-worth, you're motivated to prove people wrong, but then it's for the wrong reasons. And I don't know if that's making sense to people. Like this, even if we watch so many of the culture and the videos around just like kind of this get back up and like go after it approach, that in itself is not a bad thing, because that's resilience. But then the reason for why we're being, trying to be resilient, I think that sometimes can also not be from the best place. Does anyone have any thoughts to share of their own like personal experience where maybe that's come about?
It's so funny that you talk about, your family was so, they were so motivating for you. They wanted you to go into medicine, but the opposite happens with some of us too. So my parents didn't stimulate me. They didn't encourage me to do medicine, But of course, I was driven internally because of my feeling of lack of self-worth. So we can come from it from different perspectives as well, you know. So, you know, when I hear you, Avni, talking about your kids and saying, you know, that you want to live it and then you want to see it in them, like that early need that we all have of feeling loved and feeling protected and that someone is there for us. When we don't get that, and we all know, you know, if you don't get it before you're 5, then that can have that longer term consequence as well of feeling that we're not worthy. So whether they're driving you to get 90s or whether they just kind of give you that look and that they are distant from you, we can all kind of be there, independent of our parents. But just as I say, it's just, you know, how love is that underlying thing. That's really what we all need in terms of our self-worth. And I think that's one of the things that's missing a lot too in how, you know, kids are raised and everything else, but just a different shift of perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Tiffany. I'll just speak to this point, especially the Vedic conception of parenting from the yoga text. It talks about it's very specific that from 0 to 5, you just basically give your children love. Like that's it. There's no and it's a different way of, you know, parenting from probably the Western paradigm. You just give love from 0 to 5, and you don't reprimand, or you don't, in one sense, you're not harsh on your kids at all, because then, and it's then between the ages of then 5 to 15, 16, where you're just basically like a hammer, and you're just, you know, there's basically, you're just enforcing discipline. Because if you take, you know, the way of thinking about it is that if you're very harsh and you're very hard in that 0 to 5, then later, you know, basically that's really the important time where they're like each child is building in their self-worth, right? So that when that is not, you know, again, between 0 and 5, like they don't have the ability to discriminate and know between what is right and wrong, right? So if their action is attached to either harsh words, reprimanding, you know, then they act, then the interpretation or the understanding is that the interpretation is that they're basically take it as their kind of unworthiness, right? So that's why that kind of concept is there, like 0 to 5, it's just love, 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 love. And then when they move into a phase in their life where they're older and they're able to understand themselves and their actions a little bit better, then you move into a space where you move into kind of a role of more, you know, being, uh, you know, you kind of promote this, you foster this self-discipline that they're talking about, and that there's a specific age and a time that you know, you introduce that, and it's all attached to their identity, and it's attached to their kind of self-worth, right? And that they don't have the ability to understand that, you know, when they're younger. So it really speaks to, you know, just what you were bringing up, Tiffany, and to Avni. All right. So the question that I want to put out there, because I feel that, you know, this, I'd say this design principle, I don't know which one, you know, kind of resonated with others the most, but I'd say 2 of them, I mean, all of them do, but this one in particular, you know, resonates with myself. And the question that I wanted to put out there that we'll just kind of do a short little breakout room is a time in life where we went against the grain or the popular choice to make a decision in our life. So I'll just write it in the chat box so people understand it. But hopefully everyone got it. Time in life where we made. All right, so this is going to be the discussion question, and this is really speaking to this, you know, to this kind of principle. So we will have everyone, give everyone a chance to break out. We have 4, 8. If everyone doesn't, if people don't understand the question, feel free to ask. I think hopefully it's straightforward. All right. Okay, everyone, we'll go ahead and I'll join one of the rooms as well. Thanks, Hiba, for joining us.
I'm sorry because I need to, my son has tennis and I should leave. So every time I'm stopping 15 minutes before, just I'm hearing the call during while driving. Okay.
No problem. Thanks, Hiba.
Okay, thank you. Ciao, bye-bye.
So hopefully that was a good breakout room. I gave it a little bit longer this time because I know it was quite an involved question. And when I was getting some feedback from my sister, she had just told me, she's like, we need more time in the breakout room. So I thought, okay, let's make it a little bit more time. Anything to share? I just had a couple more points that I wanted to share. I mean, this, again, this principle, this design principle is so, so pertinent to our day-to-day life. One of the things that I also jumped out at me from here that I just wanted to bring forward is this line here. It says, in fact, nothing at all is valuable in our world until we make it so. And it really resonates with another line that my mentor always, teaches his students is that, what we appreciate appreciates, right? So, again, a very simple line that has a lot of profound effect. What we appreciate, that appreciates in life. And I think it really speaks to this point that, we can choose what we attribute value to. And I'm just very thankful that everyone has chosen to appreciate their own kind of, journey and, inner development. And then the last point that really jumped out at me was the last point in this section was, what does it mean to be centered or grounded? And it talks about, this going beyond the assignment of measurement of worth, beyond the fickleness of human judgment and opinion. To find our center means to find the sacred self, unburdened and immovable before it began seeking its own worth in the temporary world of objects and events. And so it just provided me a different perspective, because I think when we've thrown out this world being centered or grounded, there's more of a physical interpretation, either sitting on the ground, having the feet on the ground, just, being anchored. But, this perspective is really just being anchored to our true identity, right? Which is that sacred self, right? And that's why I really feel that, when we come together and discuss the things we discuss, that's what we're doing every time we're here is really trying to ground ourselves and center ourselves, but from a completely different perspective, is to that sacred self. So yeah. Anything else anyone else want to add or comment on this specific section? All right. Feel free to unmic anytime. The second design principle, which I thought was also really interesting, it's taking our story far too seriously. And I know that I have definitely done that many times, because taking our story far too seriously, the way I kind of wrap that up or kind of really summarize that is, it's that concept of what about me, right? So that what about me, approach we have sometimes to life really kind of just puts us in the center, and sometimes really pulls us away from being objective or trying to see things from an external perspective. And it says here really when we take our story too seriously, basically three things come about: fear, lamentation, and confusion, right? These three qualities come about when we can kind of immerse ourselves too far deeply in our story. And it's really interesting here. It says, when we take things too seriously, we forget that it's just a narrative. It leads to limitation and suffering. So that we can many times we can kind of trap ourselves and limit our potential when, you know, we're just always, our reality is just our own story. Can anyone kind of identify or resonate with this this design principle? Anyone else want to share what comes out when they read about this?
Could say something to this. When I went through hard times in my life, what you said, this principle to not take yourself too serious, helped me probably the most in my life. To take things with humor. Sometimes it's hard when we feel hurt, or when it looks to us that other people do things intentionally, or we feel hurt, or just if we look now at this corona situation, the world situation, obviously we come to a thinking where we think things are went wrong. So that would mean there is somebody in heaven who's doing something wrong, and I think then we are losing the right perception. So what I do if I'm not getting the sense out of it, what is something I always try? I always try to understand what is going on, why is it going on? I'm asking questions like crazy. And when I come to the point, it doesn't work. I really do take things also with black humor. Maybe it sounds a bit crazy at the first beginning, look at things with black humor, but if you get the ability to look at things with humor, even with black humor, you change your feeling about it. And when you change your feeling, you change your energy. And when you change your energy, you will start to situations will start to change, definitely. So this is a sort of what I think, if little children play card games, and in card games they have the joker the joker is something like we think it's just a image who makes fun, but it also at the same time the joker is an image you can put in everything, every situation. When you put the joker in, the joker is the card you can use for everything. And I think it's interesting. There is so much power behind humor, And I think this is when Rick can say, when we take ourselves, our own story too serious, we bring us more and more in trouble. And when we get ourselves out and we try somehow, no matter with white humor or black humor, we use humor. It's amazing tool to change the energy of the situation. I did that a lot in my life, a lot. So,
yeah. Thank you. Anyone else have anything to share on this principle? I think humor is such a great coping mechanism to work through sometimes.
Just something to add to that, if possible. I think I love what you said, Gabrielle. It's I think maybe humor allows one to reduce one's ego, because I love the fact that it says here that as a result we take ourselves too seriously, and suddenly it takes us into an enormous significance. So when you add that humor, it makes you small again. You know, it puts you into proportion, I think. Is that what you're trying to say? I just you know, it just really reduces. I mean, how can, when you have a huge ego, you don't want to laugh at yourself. You don't want to add humor into it. But when you add the humor, you're just putting everything into proportion and saying, hey, you know, I'm not the most important thing. I'm not this huge character in this only play. So I don't know whether.
Yeah, it's probably both. I think if you look again at me, I'm a person. I'm asking always of the meaning behind something, and somehow when I know that other people, I also get in trouble sometimes already, because people said, oh, you're laughing on everything, even on things you cannot laugh. This is bad attitude. This is you have a sarcasm. So they try this. Obviously, they try to make me small, because I try to get out the seriosity of things when they're getting too worse. But when things are getting worse, you know, I'm just, somehow I learned as a little child, when things are becoming too bad vibes, I was, since ever, I tried to find, you know, to escape out of the situation, not by leaving things alone, but by changing somehow the situation. And I don't know, it's a sort of experience, you know. I'm not sure I can really explain, but sort of, as you said, Avni, it's making yourself small. And when other people, then also when I was younger and other people scold on me and said, yeah, this is not to love, this is very serious, I heard it, and then they made me smaller. But anyway, it was for me to you know, to hold the place somehow when things are becoming too bad. It was a sort of holding the place of innocent childhood with, yeah, I think I don't find other words for it, because little children can laugh about things, you know. Little children don't take themselves too serious like adults do. And so I refuse to become this part of adult where you take yourself so serious. Yeah, it's a sort of being small, making yourself small. Yeah, yeah, I think it's right.
The point that you're making kind of just, it kind of folds into the next point that I want to make about humor. But, you know, we've all heard that saying that children say the darnest things, and humor can also be used as a way to convey truth, right? Because we've heard oftentimes the saying, like, you know, behind every joke, there's an element of truth, right? And so I think, you know, humor can also be used very effectively in that way, not only to, you know, sometimes dampen, you know, not take our story too seriously, but it's also, it's so versatile that we can use it to reveal, you know, it also reveals truth in a way that's digestible. Tiffany,
Absolutely.
so
you know, that reminded me.
us.
I would like to add something a little more. What I just learned not too long ago, because a friend of mine, he belongs to this, let's say, if we would have kings still in Germany, this society where, you know, before people were, anyway, I was talking about this with the Joker with him, and he told me, you know what, in older times, the Joker was not just to amuse the king. The Joker on a kingdom, he was, if there were really, really bad news, somebody has to bring the king the bad news. Everybody would have killed, you know, for bad news, because the king didn't want to listen to bad news. So they always sent the Joker to tell the king the truth. That was actually the biggest issue of a Joker. He was not just to amuse what we don't learn, you know, because now we don't have kingdoms like in older times, that there is one ruler. But he told me that when I was talking with him about what is the meaning of a Joker, and he said to me, yeah, he had to really bring the very bad news. He was the only, he has to he has had to find a way, to tell the truth to tell the truth and to bring even bad news people don't want to listen in a way where people can digest it, where even the king can digest things. So yeah, it's.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's such a great point. Anyone else have anything to share on this? One of the things that I wanted to just bring out with this point of taking our stories too seriously, and we'll come back later in our Dharma code, but that when we take our story too seriously, it can reflect a lacking of the principle of truth. And because we're creating a story that we believe in, and then what happens is that when we have this lack of truth, then it in fact also kind of then ripples over into the principle of ahimsa, where it leads towards violence, not only to ourselves, but to others, right? And so I think a lot of times we think of violence always directed towards other people, but if you remember from the initial sessions we had in the Dharma code, a lot of times, when we have this story of taking our too seriously, we can in fact inflict a lot of harm to ourselves, right? So again, just something to to think about related to this point. And and one of the ways, if you wanted to look out to the outside world and see where is this, one of the greatest symptoms of this taking our story too seriously, how does it manifest? We can see that it shows up when there's a lot of drama in one's life, right? Like if someone's life has enormous amount of drama, and if it has enormous amount of just in that, then we can see that this specific design system is one that's very prominent. So before we finish, we'll just finish off with the next, that we'll go through the third principle. But the third one is blindly pursuing an idea of success that is not our own. How did this principle land with everyone? I feel it's also connected very much to that first, to the first one of having, and especially when we talk about just our upbringings, our parents usually generally put on their belief system of what success looks like, and so many people are caught in that, pursuing that, that kind of mold of success. And what usually happens is that everybody eventually fizzles out, right? And I think that so many people are switching jobs these days is it's a result of just, this principle, pursuing an idea of success that's not our own, is because we've pursued someone else's brand of success, right? And that we're usually doing something that's not connected with ourselves, and we haven't really looked at maybe what is kind of true to ourselves. Yeah.
So I'm looking at these as interconnected. They're building blocks. So if you lose yourself in worldly worth, then you do take your story far too seriously and also fall victim to other people's story of you. And then of course your idea of success is also influenced by other people's story of you. So I think they're definitely interlinked.
Definitely. No, definitely. And I was just talking to Simon recently about about these design principles, and he had like about 20 design principles, and he just saw kind of, which ones were kind of overlapping, and, pretty much all 20 he was able to kind of compress into, just these 6. But if we look at all 6, there's going to be, the product of one is going to lead to another, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really good point. One of the points that really, jumped out at me here was, one of the strange things about life is that no matter how hard we try, we may remain incomplete and unfulfilled until we are perfectly ourselves, right? And to me, what was coming out was that it kind of spoke to this all or nothing phenomenon sometimes that we look at not only when we look at others, but specifically when we look at ourselves and kind of change. And that's where I feel that, trying to look at incremental change can be so powerful, like this law of like 1% can be really powerful, because I think we can sometimes sell ourselves short in terms of our own self-development and progress when we're just trying to look at that all or nothing phenomenon. And that's something that came out to me when I was reading that line. Any other thoughts to wrap up or close on this principle? All right. Well, the last point that I'll just share was in the last line, and I brought this up in our first class, but the palliative nurse who was spending time with people who were, passing away, and she wanted to figure out what she could learn from these people who had lived a full life, right? And the constant continuous response was, I wish I had the courage to live a true life to myself, not the life others expected of me, right? And I think we're all, on a journey where some people are trying to figure it out and some people are already there. But I think, if we can live so much more a fulfilling life if we take this, one piece of advice from the book is, trying to live something that's true to ourselves rather than, what others are expecting of us. I thought that was really, probably one of the most powerful lines in the whole book is this one here, because we're learning from people that are, kind of approaching the end of their life. So we can just take that and place it wherever we're at right now. Even if it's something small, that we're moving in the right direction, I think it has such an incredible effect.
Just one thing, sorry.
Lovely.
I always have one thing. It's an amazing what you just finished with, and I really loved it when I heard it. It's just how you nurture this. So I hope you don't think that children is everything of my life, but it is, in fact, because they're just such, as I said to Rita, they're just innocent beings that are placed in your hands, and someone says to you, okay, now be their mom or be their dad, and you're like, So how do you nurture this in a really nice, balanced way without guiding them and allowing them to be their true selves? I don't get it. I'm trying my best, but I just don't know.
That whole idea of the joy as a GPS comes to mind, like just kind of what brings them joy is going to be the area where they're expressing themselves. So kind of constantly going back to that joy as a GPS in our lives and nurturing it in our children's lives and the people that are around us as well. And maybe even being a mirror to people and helping them see that, hey, you're really passionate about this. This really brings you life. And sometimes that helps other people to see, hey, I am really alive when I talk about this, and using that whole idea of joy as a GPS may help.
I totally appreciate that. And I love that, Rita. It's but to add on to that is that, as you said, with discipline, if you don't have commitment in a particular discipline, say, for example, let's just take golf for now, at the beginning, everything is hard. So you're like, oh my God, this is a chore. Oh my God, this is a chore. But now my daughter's 11 and she started when she was 4. She's now enjoying it. Do you see? She's now driving herself. So how do you teach children to have that discipline, to be consistent? Because at the beginning, everything's going to be a chore. You see what I mean? To nurture the fact that you will reap the fruits after. Do you see? Or am I asking something?
No, I think, what's coming to mind, Avni, is that, because there's so many things we potentially want for our children that we know will be helpful to them. I think the first point is just trying to be that positive example, right? For them to see. I think that's really important. I think the second thing is, especially when it comes to just maybe even at a young age, trying to carve out a spiritual journey, even for our children, is to try to just give them as many experiences as we can that will be positive, and something they can enjoy. Because again, kids are all about, it needs to be fun, right? That's the bottom line. And so trying to, and I'm always thinking about this too, but how are we making these wisdom teachings relevant to them at their stage in life, right? Like that should be our constant meditation. is how we're making this fun and relevant to where they're at in life. So that's just my 2 cents on quickly on what you're saying. So on that note, we'll wrap up the call. I just wanted to announce that if everyone can just put in their kind of journal, or sorry, their calendar, that Simon will be joining us on March 3rd. So that's 2 weeks from now. And I will hope we can make a poster for this, this gathering, because I'd like, everyone to come, and maybe even other Titans would be welcome to come if they, took anything out of the first 2 sessions that I did for the larger group. But yeah, he's going to join us on March 3rd. And I was hoping to go through chapter 4 by then. And so that's the goal. And if we don't, that's fine. But yeah, his first, you have a first chance to meet him on March 3rd, and he's really looking forward to it. So am I, and hopefully you guys are too. So come with all your questions. The other thing I wanted to announce, I think I've told most people about this, but generally on Wednesdays at noon Eastern time, I'm usually a couple of friends of mine run this call. It's called Remembering Who We Are, and they're my friends at Upbuild, and it's a discussion, an open discussion like this, on how we can live more aligned with our soul. And that's specifically the topic. And basically what they're doing, at least right now, what they're doing for the last many weeks, they've been unpacking these 6, enemies of kind of the mind and soul. And we discuss each quality kind of at more depth in these calls. So if you want the link to that, just send me a message, and we're happy to share it for you guys to all join and benefit. So let me know. They're doing great work otherwise. All right, so if everyone is good, does anyone have any last comments or questions? Ida, do you have anything to share before we?
Well, my question was going to be, when is Simon coming? But you read my mind. So when Simon joining us, so that's great. Thank you again, Ricken, on behalf of everyone, for another great session. I kind of feel like we need to review chapter 3 some more.
Oh yeah, we haven't even gone,
So,
we didn't even get through the last 3 design principles. I was wanting to get through, but I thought, each one of them is there's so much to unpack in each one. And I think, the next exercise that I'll put in the group is identifying our domain that we have kind of chosen, and figuring out which design principle we may have broadened into that domain that might be blocking us a little bit. So that's a homework exercise that I'll put in the group for everybody, but is really just now connecting what our chosen domain is, and these design principles to bring it into that.
So for next week, are we continuing with chapter 3, or should
we'll continue chapter 3.
Okay, so everyone, next week, go back and read chapter 3 again, and we'll come back next week. Awesome.
Take care, everyone.
Have a great week, everyone. See you on WhatsApp. Bye.
Thank you.